Bonjour à tous.
Hello everybody, thank you so much for being here. We are absolutely delighted this year to welcome Murray here. What can I say about Murray? Just go on to internet and you'll find out everything that Murray has done. It's better for us to get right into our debate, and we're going to let Murray speak as much as possible. Murray was at the chateau yesterday. He had a late night, so we'll keep our voices low. So, to begin with, Murray, before we talk about the wonderful series of which we saw the first episode last night, directed by Stephen Fry, I would like to talk about how you came to music. Can you tell us where you came from in terms of music? How do we begin? You can begin in English.
Is that okay? Okay. So, how many people here, just so I know, who is a music writer? Qui est compositeur? Okay.
So tell me, how do you start to work with music?
I feel I'm going to try to tell you something from my experience, and I don't know how useful it will be for you. It's possible that you could tell me something which is more useful to me than anything I can tell you. But the first thing I want to say is the script. The most important thing that you have in your possession when you're writing music for drama is a script. Because 99% of problems with any finished piece, any finished show, is already in the script, is something that needed to be changed from the script before the filming began. Everything you need to know as a musician is in the script. The structure, the drama, the character. So for me, I read a script and I'm hearing music, and I'm sure you are the same. But I like to write down on the script exactly where I'm hearing the music. It's my own personal spotting session, and nobody is invited. Pas de directeur, personne, only me. And these personal spotting sessions, I have found 90% of the time, this is exactly where the music is in the finished film. You have to become a good reader of a script. It's not easy to read a script. The stage directions are important. You have to read them. And it takes me maybe 2 or 3 days sometimes just to read 1 hour of, ce n'est pas un roman. C'est facile, mais it takes me, because I want to visualize. So read it slow and see it. I think this is very important. Okay, so I could continue talking. Is it good? Or you want to interrupt?
Non, c'est très très important de partir de cet élément-là. Je voulais savoir juste, est-ce que tu as fait des études classiques de musique et tout? Après, mais
non, Pas exactement. I had a piano teacher lorsque j'avais 5 ans. Oui. She taught my grandmother, and she charged 25 pence. C'est un quart de pound for each lesson. And after each month, she would send my parents a bill for £1. Across my entire life as a piano player, I had lessons with her maybe for 8 years. And in that time, my family probably paid £100 for my entire music education. I think it was probably the best £100 they ever spent.
Not expensive at all, not expensive. Excellent quality for money.
She would hit me though. She liked to hit my hand. She was old school and old.
Je crois de ne pas avoir présenté Olivier Debrosse.
I haven't presented Olivier Debrosse. He has kindly agreed to speak. Olivier and Murray have known each other for a while, so perhaps Olivier will say a few words. Hello, everybody.
Do you want me to ask a question in English so you don't have to use a headset? Yeah, I can do it. My accent is terrible, I'm sorry. Well, let's talk first of a man very important in your career. It's Russell T Davies. Can you tell us if you met him and how do you work with him? Did it evolve along the years?
Okay, so I know for all of you, people ask, how can I get into film, television? Usually for people it's one director that they work with, maybe from film school or from students. Somebody lucky that you find who you follow and your paths stay together. For most composers in Hollywood, whether it's Danny Elfman, Tim Burton, whoever it is, they are always together. And I'm sure you already found this. Television is more of a writer medium than film. Film is a director, is led by the director. But television, especially in England, is led by writers. And Russell T Davies, how did I meet him? God. He saw something I did on television. They had just sacked their composer on Queer as Folk. It was Stephen Warbeck who just won an Oscar that year. And I had just done a version of Vanity Fair for British television, and they needed a replacement composer for Stephen. And he called me, he just called me up and said, Murray, I've done this thing, it's the best television I've ever done. I would love you to work on it. So, you know, since then, I worked on almost everything that he's written, and luckily he's written a lot. So this is how I met him, and then we would just, you know, I'll tell you a funny story. Like while I was writing the music for Queer as Folk, I burnt my house down.
You did burn your house
with
down?
Russell. No, I burnt literally. No, est-ce qu'il y a un grand feu?
There was a huge fire in my house when we were working on Queer as
Russell had
Folk.
come to my house to look at my cues for Queer as Folk, and we went for pizza. But nous avons faim. and I put the toaster on, and and then we went for pizza, and then we came back, and c'était un grand scene dramatique. And I managed, the house was almost completely destroyed, no power, but he still came back. He still came back the next day, and we managed to find one plug which I could plug in the television. We're sitting with scarves over our face because the fumes were so terrible, and we carried on doing the spotting session for Queer as Folk. And then I moved into a hotel. So it was really good.
Yeah, so this is a collaboration built on fire.
Yeah, built on fire. I like that.
So is it because it was a script for A Very English Scandal that you went to compose your music for it?
Well, I suppose, yes. So this show, did you all see A Very English Scandal last night? Did anybody not see it? Okay. So so you already heard me say I love Stephen Frears. So yeah, he got me as composer. That was it. He had no choice. He had one choice. He could have Alexander Desplat. But the fee, yeah, I told you last night, he's too cheap. It was too cheap, the production, and Desplat is a very expensive composer. So I'd do anything. I write music for anything, for anybody. I don't need money. So yeah, that was good. That was a good luck, because we ended up having a great relationship.
Alors justement par rapport à ça, comment tu as travaillé avec Stephen Frears?
So how did you work with Stephen Frears? The music is really orchestrated, it's so sophisticated, and it ties in perfectly with the theme of the film. But it's a fiction which is not always funny, but there are funny parts. So you had to find that middle ground, something which would underscore the comedic elements. Did you work with the images?
Avec le script, d'accord.
Oui. Actually, so for A Very English Scandal, I wrote the entire score, all of the themes for the characters, before I had seen anything. This is how valuable the script is. And honestly, I thought it would be very difficult with Frears, because anybody who's worked in Hollywood for that long must be tough, right? They're tough people. And I thought he would be difficult to deal with. He's impatient, he's 76 years old. He doesn't suffer fools. But he was actually, because he's a great director, it was really easy. He knew exactly what he wanted, and when he heard the music, he could hear that he liked it, that it was the right idea. So, but I sent all of the themes to him before anything, and I sent all of the themes to all the exec producers. I wanted to make everything as easy as possible, because I thought this would be very difficult. Everybody was nervous. Hugh Grant makes people nervous, Stephen Frears makes people nervous. Film about scandal with living persons makes people nervous. I thought this project would be trouble all the way through. So I wanted to minimize the trouble. So I sent everything, and everybody had already heard the music, and they decided they'd already fallen in love with the music before anything. It didn't stop there. There was still trouble, so don't worry. This is not just a happy story, but to try and make it as small as possible. You know, there's always trouble when you, for a compositor, because you're the last person, everything else is finished. The last hope of your work for everybody, for the financiers, they're millions of euros. The last hope that they will get that money back is with you. So you have to hold all of that trouble. So you have to, you know, I think a big part of being composer is learning how to hold the trouble, you know?
How do you find balance between drama and comedy and getting to a music which is very ironic? Mm-hmm. How did you do it?
It's just my character.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, I personally, we all have tastes. I had a little trouble this year with a director who wanted me to write some very sad music, all sad, everything sad, sad, sad. And I said to her, I think you are mistaking pain for depth. You know? How can anybody watch something which is only sad? It's terrible. It's a and she was young. She was, you know, 28 maybe. And peut-être un peu patronising de moi. But I said, I find it an adolescent thing to always look for pain. I understand what you are seeing. You think this makes things important for people to show only pain. But in fact, it just turns people away. But for me, everything is funny, even though now I'm not laughing at anything because all of the people here. The tone of, this is the second thing you are doing while you are reading a script. You are hearing the tone. Where is this in life? Where is the joy? If you can't find any joy in the script, just don't do it. Just give it to someone else, because you will do a bad job. It has to have every story. Just you know, you have to find it. So, and it can be different, but it's not who I am. You know, you have the Hans Zimmer where there is never a joke, nothing funny, just all serious, you know. But it's maybe some of you can do this, but not me.
What you mean is you need to have fun to write music.
If you're not having fun, nobody is.
Yeah. So let's talk about fun. I think also through Russell Davies you did a little show called Doctor Who. How do you immerse yourself in a universe existing for such a long time before you?
Well, it was born new in 2005, even though it's 50 years old. It's now 60 years old nearly. I worked on Doctor Who for 13 years, and I don't know how many episodes I did, but it was the perfect show for me. It really was the perfect show. I was very lucky to find it and to meet it, because the balance between the humor and the adventure and the little moments of tristesse, all of this was very beautiful balance for me. So that's why I could do 150 episodes. Something like that. And it was hard. It was very, very hard work. 40 minutes a week of music sometimes.
You also had to rewrite the original theme from Ron Grainer several times. How did you do it?
I don't know. It's difficult to make a modern something that has the dunka 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 dung rhythm. It's very difficult to make electronic versions of this which don't sound terrible. I probably already did make it sound terrible. I don't know. It would be so much easier if it was 4/4, you know, because you can do so much more with the rhythm. So I tried to go. Tried to make the rhythm more interesting. You know, like that, just to try to make it a little bit more interesting, and then. You know, it's a difficult rhythm because it sounds like the rhythm is like a Christmas song, you know. So I don't know. It's probably the thing I'm least proud of on Doctor Who. I mean, I don't love what I did on the theme music. I don't love it, but
yeah, but not because it's not yours.
Not because it's not mine, no. Because it's the thing. I can't look at it and say, "Oh, that's amazing! I did it." I can't say I did a great job. I never listened to it and thought, "That's amazing."
Yeah. Well, let's talk about themes. You wrote a lot of themes, from bad guys to places, and a new theme for each new Doctor, which is, I think, 6. How do you find the right theme for the right actor, knowing it's the same character?
Okay, so character themes. They're kind of old-fashioned leitmotif, you know? But I love them. I think the audience loves them. Some producers love them. Some producers hate them. But for me, just, you know, I'm sure because you are all composers, most of you, something drew you to drama. And so for me, I see the way someone walks, the way someone talks, and I have a little tune in my head, you know? Maybe a rhythm. Just something about them. And so in Doctor Who, yes, it was the same character, fictional character, but each actor was different and they bring something new. And there was some characters where I felt the show needed something different. And I would write a character theme and send it to Stephen and say, I think this is what you need for this character because it sounds fresh, it sounds innocent, and it sounds uncomplicated. And the show has become too complicated. So if you listen to this, maybe it will give you some inspiration. And he would write his scripts sometimes listening to the music. So it's, you know, they're all easy characters to write music for, you know. They're simple, they're very easy characters. I was very lucky because you don't always find characters who are so musical. In Doctor Who, everybody always feels like they're about to start singing about love or the universe, or, you know, which makes writing music very easy.
So you make them sing?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you work only with the showrunner, Stephen Moffat for Doctor Who, or do you also work directly with directors from each episode? On Doctor Who, I don't remember meeting any directors after the first series in 2005. I'm sure the directors were very frustrated that they didn't get to speak to me. But sometimes a director would come up, season 7, episode 8, and he would write an email
I want to change everything. I think that this character needs this theme, and this character needs something different. And, you know, it's hard to respond because you want to help, but at the same time, you want to say, I'm sure you will win a BAFTA one day, but perhaps it will be with this, but this is already the 137th episode. It's not the first. So your next job, you need to get the first episode, and then you will have more direction for the music. Because we are writing so fast. Some days the episode would arrive on a Friday, and by Wednesday I would be sending 35 minutes of the score to an orchestrator. I was lucky to have an orchestrator to work with. It makes things a lot easier. But still, there really isn't time to have too many disputes or arguments. I kind of like that because I constantly used it as an excuse to not talk to anybody. That, you know, there are two things which look like a disadvantage which are actually really good. One is no money, and two is no time. They are connected. But they can both make life easier for you as a musician because people are just grateful for whatever you give them. So you can direct everything from that position. So, and then you can go and use use the good work that you've done to get something where you can live.
Okay. So you said it's 5 days to compose for a complete episode.
Sometimes.
Mostly.
Yeah.
Don't you feel sometimes it's not coming out anymore, and you can do it? You have no inspiration. You have.
Well, has anybody suffered here from not having inspiration? Has anybody sat at the computer or the piano and thought, where do I begin? Again, no time, no money is a good help with that. You know, the worst thing would be, here is $1 million and we need a work of genius in 1 year. I would be dead within 3 months. Probably suicide. So I listen to a lot of music. I subscribe to Tidal. I really love it, and every Friday, every new album is released. I don't know how anyone is making any money. But every Friday on Tidal, every new album that the record company is released comes out on a Friday, and I just sit and listen to everything. And there's always inspiration around from copying other people. You know? There's young, you know, I'm old now. I'm like nearly 50. And all these young people making music, you know, and they're all, you know, so now I'm listening to them.
Okay. You've given 12 years of your life to Doctor Who, and recently, a few months ago, you announced that you will not be scoring the next Doctor. Can you tell us why, and how do you feel about it?
Well, there's a time and a place. Now I start singing. No, this is like a Michel Legrand song, isn't it? You know, or, you know, this is a really French song I could sing now, you know, like Jacques Brel or something. You know, it's the autumn of my career. You know, actually, when I hung my boots up, when I stopped, Doctor Who, I really thought, okay, so probably I won't have any more work now. What shall I do? Perhaps I become professor, you know? And then I think within 2 days, I had an offer to do Very English Scandal, and also this other, the series, which was a very sad one that I already talked about. And I had no time to think about Doctor Who. The Christmas episode came out. I was sitting writing music every day. Nothing had changed. I thought, where is my retirement? I thought this was supposed to change. For me, it's just a new doctor who happened to be in a gay relationship with a young man he met in a stables. This was my new doctor. And it just happened to be called A Very English Scandal. You know, how do I feel about it? It's such a weird thing, because everywhere in the world there's especially young people who... I was talking at Oxford University as a guest. I was the day after Anthony Scaramucci, Trump's press secretary, who, you know this guy. He was Trump's press secretary for 2 days, just filled the air with terrible words and then got fired. And he was the day before me. And then the day after me was supposed to be Paul Manafort. So I was in this sandwich of guests between Anthony Scaramucci and Paul Manafort, both of whom I hope will rot in prison forever. And I was in this horrible sandwich. And I said to the organizer, I must be the most insignificant guest that you have ever invited. And he was this big, tall man, like 21 years old. He was going off to work in politics in America. And he said, I've been listening to your music since I was 6. What do you mean you're the most, you're very significant for me? And I looked at this big, tall man and I thought, how is it possible? You've been listening to my music since you were 6. How is that? How did that happen? And of course, 13 years for me is not so long, but for him, this was everything. It's his whole life. So I keep meeting people like this around the world, and it really makes me feel very humble. It's when when the young people just, they say, they talk about the themes, and it's so sweet. So there you go. That's how I feel about it. It was a lovely time, and I will miss it.
Okay, let's go technical a little bit. How do you work with electronics by itself and sometimes mixed with orchestra and choir? How do you work with it?
Okay, so in my head, everything is acoustic. I like a melody, you may have noticed. You know, most of my music can be expressed with chords and the melody line, like a head sheet. But, you know, the power of sitting with a computer is incredible. I think in 2013, I made a decision that I would buy every sample library, everything that came out, because I had a new computer. And I was just not going to think about it. I was going to buy everything. Even if I needed it, never mind, doesn't matter. I said to myself, it's okay, you are allowed to do it. You are a composer. This is your job. You should have these libraries. So I bought everything, and it was really fun. It's great fun. But you know, I end up just using, I have maybe 50 sounds, 50 patches from libraries that I use, and all of the rest, maybe 12 terabytes of samples I have never even listened to. But I sit, you know how magnificent it is to sit there at your workstation with speakers. It's incredible. You sit there making music that didn't exist 10 seconds ago. I will say something about this though. Try and dream up your music before you sit down with the computer. Just try and write it on the scripts. The same way I said, if you can, just read and watch the film happen in your head while you're reading the script. Make the notes. Make ideas of sounds there. Try not to do it at the computer, because otherwise you are directed by the computer. You are not directing the computer anymore. It is programming you. I sound very paranoid. But it's a danger, you know. This is the best computer. Everything that happens in here, the things that you can hear, then you can go and try and make them, you know, from your whatever, from Omnisphere or whatever, you know. You can take Omnisphere and try and make the sound that you are hearing. It's just my little piece of advice, but you know, it's just huge. It's just so much fun in the laboratory of music nowadays. On the downside of that is that there are so many people making music now. So again, if you think of it in your head, I think you will have a more original sound, you know, in the end. And this is what you need to be noticed, is something that has an attitude, something original. Do you think? He agrees.
One tricky question. How do you work with temporary music? And how do you feel about it?
Oh my God, temp music. Who loves, which composers here love temp music? There's your answer. How do I feel about it? I heard a composer saying, I was sitting in Los Angeles and I heard him saying, I really like temp music, I don't mind it at all. I just thought, come on, who are you kidding? With Frears just now, there was no temp music at all. I said, you know, it's such a problem, it's so dangerous. The producers fall in love with temp music, the exec, the director, everybody wants, you find you're in a battle against. I have nothing really to say about it, because I think everybody already understands the difficulty of working with this. If you can do what just happened for me, speak to your editor, find your editor, tell the editor that you are going to be supplying music while she or he is editing the music. And then you be prepared to work 10 times as hard, because every new cut of the film, you are going to write a new cue for that cut. But it's worth it, because the music will always be yours, all through the editing process. And actually, the producers and the director will start to love it too, because they realize that you can keep making the changes for them. After Doctor Who, when I always said no to everything, I decided just to say yes to everything with Stephen Frears, and it was a lot of work. It was a lot of rewriting, he edited everything, even while I was on the plane to record the music. Everything was changed. And you know, it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be, just to make a little cut in the music. So there you are. Temp music is the enemy.
Yeah, I guess so. Oui.
Je voudrais juste, surtout s'il y a des questions.
If there are any questions, now would be the time to start putting them. We've got about 15 minutes left. You don't need a moderator, you're your own moderator. Would anyone like to ask a question about Murray's work?
Léo Murray. Comment est-ce qu'on fait aujourd'hui avec... Moi je suis réalisateur, je suis pas...
I'm a film director, I'm not a composer.
Aujourd'hui tout le monde a les mêmes...
Nowadays,
workstation.
Everybody has the same
Works with, you know,
workstations, Spitfire.
Libraries, and everything is just great. You know, as you said, just. How do you find your own voices with that? How do you find originality? Because a lot of things are sounding the same today. I mean, reverbs and EQs, and everybody's intend to be the same, you know?
Vraiment. Well, you know why you want to write music, because so originality is a difficult thing, because really I don't know what originality is. I don't know how to answer what it is, but a voice with drama is something different. I mean, you look at A Very English Scandal, there's nothing original about the music. It's about a joyous ebullience, you know? I do that a lot. It's my character, you know? If you can put your character in the music and people can hear you, this is already, you are fighting against everything being the same. Because when everything is the same, you don't hear any character in the music. Whatever you have inside that, I sound just cliche, you know, but like my music gets on people's nerves because it's always so, it has a lot of energy. For some people who perhaps un petit peu misanthrope, they hate my music. It's too, what's the matter with this guy? Why is he so happy? I'm not actually, but music is my salvation, you know? I love Stevie Wonder. Where is this blind young man? So what is he so happy about? This guy makes music always which makes us feel so happy to be alive. You know,
He sees things that we do not see.
of course, he's genius, you know, so, I don't know, I mean, but I do agree with you that there's a problem with, you know, producers like music that has no character because they don't want you to tell them what the show is. They want to find out from the audience, and for me, the best composers are telling the audience what they've seen and felt already. So.
Hello, thank you for this wonderful panel. I just want to ask, what kind of an orchestra did you use for A Very English Scandal? And also, one thing I want to know is, at this stage of your career, how do you deal with the rights and the licensing? Like, do you keep your rights, or do you give license to the production company? I just want to know how it is.
Okay. This is very technical. Wait, what was the first part?
The orchestra.
Oh yeah, the orchestra. Okay, let's deal with that. So, with A Very English Scandal, remember, I've already made friends with everybody. I have positioned myself politically to be the best friend of all the exec producers. I have supplied them with music. Now is the time that I become a tyrant. And I rang up the producer and I said, so we will need all 3 episodes finished March 15th, because I'm coming to London and we will record all 3 episodes in 2 days, because that's the only way we can work with this budget. We can't do 1 episode with an orchestra, hire an orchestra for 3 hours and only have 15 minutes of music. We have to have the orchestra seated and they have to play all 3 episodes. So we had 1 orchestra of peut-être 34 personnes for 4 hours. They did every cue across 3 episodes. every big cue. Then we had rock and roll combo, sort of drum, bass, guitar. And then we had a little woodwind section and a solo piano section. And that was it, really. In 2 days, we did everything. The whole, you know. So it was good organization by me. I used my experience for that. They wanted to send us to Latvia to record the music because the producers were, oh, this is cheap. This will be so cheap. Yes, it would have been cheap. But that's all. And, okay, with the rights, when I started writing, 20 years ago, I did my first show like 20 years ago. The commissioning fee was much higher, and you kept your rights. And slowly they would say, no more commissioning fee. You will be paid afterwards from back end and from your rights. And then slowly that is now evaporating. And Netflix and Amazon don't want to pay anyone any royalties anywhere. They want to pay money, and they pay good money. But if you want to work for Netflix or Amazon or Google or Apple, you will not be keeping any rights for your music. Me, I don't think anyone. No, if you want to keep them, goodbye. We have someone here who will give us their rights. Yeah, it's very difficult, you know. It's very difficult situation. On the plus side, you know, I think slowly, Spotify and YouTube and things like that will get everything together and will start paying royalties. And there is some encouraging progress for young composers who put their music on the internet. Perhaps, I don't know if any of you are receiving royalty checks from YouTube or...
C'est très très peu.
Yeah.
Il y a encore beaucoup de travail à faire.
Well, I had told my publisher to remove me from Spotify because as a protest, I mean, and he said, there's no point removing because you need to be there when it comes around and they will start paying eventually. I don't know, so all I can tell you is hold on to whatever you can.
Hi, Murray. Just wanted to know on the film we saw last night, Very British Scandal, the main theme, how many propositions did you, or the first one was the good one, or you did several propositions to have the good?
So for that, I just wrote, I really thought I'd stolen this, actually. Please don't tell me I have. If I have, just don't tell anyone. It just seemed so catchy, you know, like it's stuck in my head. And I thought it should be on marimba, something without any emotion, just something that intriguing, a little funny story. It's funny because so many people in England said, oh, there's this main comic theme, it's so comic. I was like, well, it's in A flat minor. Usually, you know, even if you could only say one thing about a comic theme, it would be that it is in a major key. But I actually wrote that. I was so sure that this was perfect. I mean, I just thought, this is it, this is what you need. I'm telling you, the guys, this is what you need. And they listened to it and they said, yeah, that sounds great. So we started working with that and found that it was like a little bit kaleidoscopic. You know, you could put it in here and you could put it in here and it could change and it could be sad. And so it was a happy process.
Thank you. And congrats.
Did it arrive sometimes that you compose the music and then the director or screenwriter just after that said, wow, this makes me another idea, so we're going to change the total scene to match the music?
Oh my God, in my dreams. Listen, Mr. Producer, the music's just arrived and I think we need to recut because it's brilliant. I mean, look, no, but you know, it's a good question. And I will tell you, honestly, Frears, this happened. He would say to me, and again, this was because he was cutting and I was working very early on in the production. I would send him something and he'd say, just write the rest of it. And I'd say, but the scene ends there. And he said, I know, but I haven't cut it. Write the rest of the scene. And I said, what? And he said, just finish that musical idea, finish it. So I would just continue the music, you know, and he would say, oh, this is great, this is helping me cut. So in a way, this happened on a very English scandal. But maybe not, if you start with this process of sending music to the cutting room while they are cutting, you have more chance of this happening.
Quelqu'un veut poser une question?
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Do you have time to make other things in music production, and how do you deal with that? Do you have the time to write songs for people, or?
Yes. Well, I love musicals. Musical. How do you say comedy musicale? So. All the time I have been doing Doctor Who, I've been working with ballet, with theatre. I like to, you know, I have to stay fit, physical, to work. Do you mean, do I do anything non-musical or just song? I don't, you know, I never write songs anymore unless they're for musicals. Okay. Because I just have nothing. I mean, we don't need another Leonard Cohen. You know, I mean, the songwriters I love, you know, Lou Reed, David Bowie, you know, Leonard Cohen and Jacques Brel, and, you know, I could write another pessimistic song about death to cheer everybody up. Come and show my wife, what's the matter with you, Murray? So, but yeah. So only really if it's for drama, something dramatic.
Thank you very much, Marie. We have to call a halt to our masterclass. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for your very generous words, and thank you for coming all the way to Fontainebleau and sharing this very special time, the screening yesterday, the conversation this morning. And Olivier, thank you very much for coming along too, for coming through the traffic jams to be here, and thank you in the audience. And thank you to the interpreter.